Or the red flags and say, let's just keep pushing. Those are the times where you fail. The majority of things that we're buying are created.
In my 30-plus year career in Hollywood, and an executive producer is below a producer.
Men, you always learn more from your failures than you do your successes. I love creating, and I think that
in the film world, an executive producer signed up to be an executive producer, and that's it. As the
authorship, yet women represent 85% of people making purchases in homes across.
Speculation has been swirling through the entertainment industry for months now, with a cloud of controversy hovering above a high-profile film project. The tension between Blake Lively and director Justin Baldoni seemed like just another piece of Hollywood gossip at first. What started with subtle reports of behind-the-scenes friction soon escalated into something much more complicated. This story took a dramatic turn when Blake suddenly fled the country on the very same day Justin revealed a new set of receipts, damning evidence that completely flipped the narrative. In an age where rumors spread faster than a viral TikTok, Blake's abrupt departure set off a firestorm of questions. Was she fleeing from the fallout of her own actions? Was she protecting her personal privacy? Or was there another reason entirely? The industry and fans alike couldn't seem to wrap their heads around what was happening. How could someone like Blake, known for her grace and professionalism, suddenly vanish in such a dramatic fashion? To fully understand the magnitude of Blake's sudden departure, we have to go back to the beginning, back to the start of the project that would become the focal point of all this drama. Justin Baldoni, known for his thoughtful and emotionally rich storytelling, was at the helm of this much-anticipated film. Fans were already excited for what was being called a groundbreaking project, and Blake's casting as the lead seemed like the perfect fit. She was a seasoned actress, with a string of successful films under her belt, and her ability to captivate audiences was undeniable. Initially, things seemed to be going smoothly. Blake and Justin appeared to be in sync, on the surface at least. Early reports from the set painted a picture of harmony, with Justin praising Blake's enthusiasm and her eagerness to be part of what was touted as a deeply meaningful film adaptation. Blake, for her part, shared her excitement about the project in interviews, calling it fulfilling to be involved in something so creatively charged. But little did anyone know, beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. As filming progressed, whispers began circulating. Crew members, who had previously praised Blake's professionalism, now said they noticed a shift in her demeanor. The actress, typically seen as warm and accommodating, seemed tense when interacting with Justin. According to insiders, she grew more and more uncomfortable with Justin's dual role as director and writer of the screenplay. This added a layer of complexity to the already taxing dynamics of a film set, and some speculated that the combination of his control over the creative process and his star power on set was stifling for an actor who was used to more creative freedom. It didn't take long for the rumblings to turn into full-blown rumors. While she had been initially regarded as collaborative, Blake's interactions with Justin began to appear strained. Crew members noted that she would often give half-hearted responses when asked about the creative direction, and more than once, she cast sidelong glances whenever Justin was singled out for praise. At first, fans shrugged off the reports. Disagreements on a film set are hardly a new phenomenon, and surely this was just an example of creative differences between a director and his star. But things took a sharp turn when negative press began to surface. Blake was suddenly being portrayed as difficult to work with, aloof, distant, and uncooperative. The media painted her as someone unwilling to collaborate, turning a simple creative disagreement into a full-blown
producer is below a producer in the film world. An executive producer.
It is important in times like these to have a distraction. And that's why I
signed up to be an executive producer, and that's it. As the
I want to personally extend my gratitude to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
Feud. Unsurprisingly, Blake didn't take this lying down. In a bold move, she claimed that Justin was using his position as director to manipulate the narrative and tarnish her public image. According to Blake, Justin was using his control over the coverage to maintain power in the creative process, marginalizing her contributions. In a climate where celebrity media narratives are often shaped by those with the loudest voices, Blake's accusations struck a chord. She described an environment in which her concerns were brushed aside, painting Justin as a domineering figure who wanted to control every aspect of the project. For a time, public sympathy largely sided with Blake. Many observers felt that her frustrations were a reflection of the systemic issues that have long plagued Hollywood, where male directors sometimes overshadow female leads and women's voices are marginalized. This narrative began to gain momentum until Justin, who had largely remained silent, decided to fight back with a bombshell of his own. Justin didn't just deny Blake's claims. He unveiled a series of unredacted text message logs between the two of them. These weren't just a few isolated exchanges. They were extended conversations that spanned from the earliest days of pre-production all the way to the final day of filming. And what they revealed was shocking. Rather than dismissing or ignoring Blake's input, these texts showed Justin regularly consulting her on key creative decisions. He had gone out of his way to make accommodations for her preferences, even changing schedules to better suit her needs. In fact, some of the messages were downright apologetic. Justin took responsibility for any oversights and made it clear that he valued Blake's feedback. He had even gone so far as to try to smooth over any tension between them by encouraging Blake to share her concerns directly with him. The portrait that emerged from these text logs painted a very different picture than the one Blake had portrayed. Instead of a controlling director, fans saw a director who had bent over backward to keep the peace, only to be met with resistance and antagonism from Blake. But the text didn't stop there. They also hinted at something even more controversial. Blake had allegedly threatened to use her significant influence, and that of her husband, Ryan Reynolds, to push Justin into making creative decisions that she preferred. This revelation changed everything. The public's perception of Blake quickly began to shift. The sympathetic narrative about the female lead being overpowered by a male director seemed less convincing in light of these new receipts. Some fans even began to question whether the earlier reports of tension had been planted by Blake's team to manipulate public opinion. Was this an orchestrated effort to paint Justin as a villain? Or was there more to the story than met the eye? As the media frenzy continued to unfold, another key piece of the puzzle emerged: Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband. Speculation ran rampant. Could Ryan have been quietly working behind the scenes to shape the narrative against Justin? The texts Blake sent to Justin frequently mentioned her husband, describing him as one of her dragons, a term she never fully explained, but which suggested that she had powerful allies at her disposal when things went awry. Could Ryan, with his massive star power, have used his influence to support his wife's side of the story, even if it meant painting Justin in a negative light? But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more complicated, a shocking twist came into play. Blake's own attorney resigned, releasing a puzzling statement that only fueled the fire. The attorney's statement hinted that Blake's version of events didn't quite line up with
An executive producer signed up to be an executive producer, and that's it.
And I'm grateful. I think we're all grateful. And I think we're good.
Documented facts. For those familiar with Hollywood, this was unprecedented. Attorneys in these kinds of situations typically work behind the scenes, managing controversies quietly and discreetly. Blake wanted to take over the film, one anonymous industry insider claimed. She started pushing to be a producer, even though she was only signed on as an executive producer. She wanted to make creative decisions, including edits, that went beyond her role. She wanted to be involved in areas that had already been designated to people with specific expertise, like editing. This move, seen by many as extraordinary, raised a lot of eyebrows. In Hollywood, actors don't typically cross over into areas of production unless they have a vested interest in doing so. For Blake to suddenly start making demands and offering creative input beyond her role was, to many, unprecedented. As the drama escalated, Justin did exactly what he had promised to do. He released even more text messages, new receipts that provided a more comprehensive timeline of events. These texts were thicker, more detailed, and painted an even more thorough picture of his interactions with Blake. The messages not only showed that he had tried to accommodate her needs, but they also revealed his ongoing efforts to keep things professional. He regularly asked for her feedback, offered apologies, and made changes to the schedule to help alleviate her concerns. But with every attempt to resolve the conflict, it seemed that Blake was pulling away further. Now, with the new receipts on the table, the public's perception of the entire situation is being upended. What was once a story about a female star being stifled by a male director has turned into a more complicated tale of power, influence, and blurred lines. As Blake's sudden departure raises more questions than answers, one thing is clear. The truth may be far more complicated than we originally thought. What began as minor conflicts on set quickly spiraled into a media whirlwind that caught everyone by surprise. Hollywood is no stranger to behind-the-scenes drama, especially on high-profile productions, but nothing could have prepared fans for the explosive turn of events that followed when Justin Baldoni, the director of the film in question, dropped a bombshell of text message logs that would not only clear his name but also validate the accounts of several crew members who had been quietly supporting him from the start. These crew members, who had remained silent for fear of not being believed, were now vindicated by the truth that had long been hidden behind rumors and whispers. The narrative around Blake Lively, who had once been considered the picture of Hollywood elegance, now seemed to be unraveling before the public's eyes. As soon as Justin released the extended text logs, fans and industry insiders alike were left stunned. Blake, once thought to be untouchable, suddenly found herself at the center of a scandal that was swiftly escalating. She had, without warning, fled the country, disappearing from the limelight just as Justin dropped his receipts. The timing was nothing short of explosive, leading many to speculate on the nature of her departure and the reasons behind it. Theories about Blake's flight ran rampant, with airport sightings on social media placing her in a European city known for being a celebrity refuge. At one high-end hotel, a staff member even claimed to have seen someone who strongly resembled Blake checking in under a pseudonym and wearing large sunglasses. Paparazzi scrambled to capture her, but she was nowhere to be found. The mystery surrounding her whereabouts only added fuel to the fire. Fans and the media questioned whether she had truly fled to escape the fallout from the new evidence, or if this was part of a larger strategy to lay low until the controversy blew over. Some speculated that Blake had chosen a quieter, less public location, far away from paparazzi hotspots, to regain her privacy. Others hypothesized that she was orchestrating a carefully calculated return, perhaps once the storm had passed, armed with a well-crafted narrative to counteract Justin's text logs. Her sudden departure left many wondering what she would do next. Would she address the claims directly, or remain in hiding indefinitely, waiting for the media to find a new scandal to latch onto? Just months earlier, Blake had seemed almost untouchable. Known for her comedic charm, her philanthropic efforts, and her perfectly curated social media presence, she was widely admired for her seemingly perfect public persona. But all of that began to crack with the suddenness.
And I'm grateful. I think we're all grateful. And I think we're good.
I've never seen it before in my 30-plus year career in Hollywood. And an executive
of her departure, perfectly timed with Justin's bombshell release. In Hollywood, reputations can pivot in an instant, and Blake's image, once pristine, was now in jeopardy. The timing of her exit felt like a final chapter in what had been a gripping, and at times bizarre tale. Her flight overshadowed everything else, from her personal brand to her professional commitments. The speculation surrounding her upcoming projects and the nature of her Hollywood partnerships only added to the sense that something had gone terribly wrong. Was her exit a strategic move, or was it an admission of guilt? And more importantly, what was the true story behind her departure? Meanwhile, Justin was not about to let the scandal overshadow the film itself. Despite the drama surrounding the production, he refused to let the controversy derail the project. In a media Q&A, he remained resolute in his stance, insisting that the film would be completed and distributed as planned. The heart of the story, he said, was far more important than the surrounding drama. And while the dust from his conflict with Blake still swirled, he reaffirmed that his primary goal was to bring the film to an audience who would appreciate the artistry behind it. As the media circus continued to churn, cast members began to speak out in support of Justin. They praised his calm leadership throughout the ordeal, contrasting it with the growing swirl of allegations against him. Some even went as far as to label the entire situation a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of how quickly the manipulative potential of star power could overshadow genuine creative work if not kept in check. These comments pointed to a deeper truth in the industry. When stars use their influence to control the narrative, it can distort the creative process in ways that are not always obvious to the public. For Blake, the situation was increasingly complicated. Her decision to flee the country, whether for privacy or to evade the public fallout, raised more questions than it answered. The new receipts Justin had revealed only breathed new life into the story, and the narrative now painted her departure as a direct response to revelations she could not counter. Pundits speculated that she might eventually attempt a carefully orchestrated PR comeback, offering contrition or a public clarification about the context of her disputed text messages. Others believed she might stay out of the spotlight for an extended period, choosing to focus on personal matters until the public's attention shifted elsewhere. Of course, the question on everyone's mind was, where was Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband, in all of this? If Blake had fled overseas to escape the media frenzy, what role, if any, did Ryan play in the unfolding drama? Would he stay in the US to weather the storm, or would he join Blake in her retreat? The media was quick to scrutinize his every move. His refusal to comment on the situation or address the so-called dragons that Blake had reportedly referenced in her text messages led to even more speculation. Were Ryan and Blake secretly working together to frame the narrative? Was their famed comedic rapport just a thin veneer for a much more calculated backstage operation? One insider, actor and comedian T.J. Miller, weighed in on the situation once the dust from his initial disclosures began to settle. He confirmed that some of the new text messages Justin had revealed matched references he had heard about but never fully seen. Miller expressed a sense of partial relief, saying that Justin's thorough logs had finally provided the corroboration he had been lacking. For Miller, the truth was now undeniable, and it painted a clear picture of a situation filled with misdirection and manipulation. In interviews, Miller stressed that his role was never to cast blame on anyone but to bring honesty to a situation that was filled with half-truths and strategic leaks. He expressed regret that Blake had felt so cornered that she had to flee, but insisted that the responsibility for the scandal rested not with him or Justin, but with Blake herself and the behind-the-scenes actions she had taken.